How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows.
The complexity of foreign interference requires us to understand the links between a wide range of interconnected issues. Foreign interference by hostile state actors, such as the People's Republic of China, is a profound challenge, as we have heard. The security and intelligence community has been responding and speaking about this threat for years. Nevertheless, as my colleagues have so clearly pointed out, much more can be done to address this threat.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Gang, what's up? Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney. The People's Republic of China is a real issue in Canada. No doubt they've got their hands in our municipal politics, provincial politics, federal politics, indeed. But now we're lending them billions of dollars to fund what would seem like the enemy. Let's take a peek. Dr. Leslyn Lewis is going to expose this big loan that's being given to BC Ferries, over $1 billion. It's crazy, guys. Like, listen to this. Dr. Leslyn Lewis, she's got her PhD in law. Let's check her out exposing the liberal loan.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Lewis.
Thank you. The Liberal Infrastructure Bank gave out their largest investment to date, $1 billion of taxpayer-funded loans, not for building Canadian ships to power our Canadian economy, but to build up the Chinese economy, Chinese workers, and to power their own economy. There are a number of questions that come to mind for Canadians. Firstly, Canadians want to know, why has taxpayer-funded Liberal Bank not ensure that its loans are not being used to fund industries in foreign nations? The question also arises, how did the Minister of Infrastructure and this Liberal government allow this to happen? This is not what Canadians expect when the Liberal government said that the bank would catalyze investments and that they would leverage private sector dollars. The Trudeau, now Carney-backed Canada Infrastructure Bank, is funded with $35 billion of taxpayer money, and it's being used, those taxpayer funds are being used to ship jobs essentially overseas and selling out the Canadian shipbuilding industry, all at the expense of Canadian workers. What this motion is about is a very serious matter to Canadians and to our Canadian economy. The Liberal government and the Infrastructure Bank are actually complicit in offshoring Canadian jobs, and this is a very serious issue. This is especially outrageous at a time when our steel workers and industry are under attack from unjustified U.S. tariffs. The CIB is complicit in undermining Canadian competitiveness, and they must be held to account for how they have allowed this to happen. There is actually no excuse that the Minister of Transportation, who has been in cabinet for at least 10 years, omitted the fact that this $1 billion financing is from the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Her strongly worded letter to her provincial counterpart actually made it sound as if her government had nothing to do with financing the Chinese ships. How could this government feign outrage at the investment, yet not know that they were bankrolling it at a subsidized rate, sending Canadian jobs abroad? How many Canadians get a loan from the government at a 1.8 interest rate? Canadians would love this treatment for their governments that we are handing out to foreign nations. This $1 billion funding to China is liberal incompetence at best and deliberately misleading to Canadians at worst. This is exactly why Canadians have long opposed the Liberal failed infrastructure bank. Where is the transparency? And why are they funding projects that are taking jobs from Canadians and giving them to countries with much lower labor standards, much lower environmental standards, and much lower ethical standards? The bank has also struggled to attract private sector investment, barely 1-to-1, even though they promised a 6-to-1 ratio. The bank has not only failed to attract any private sector investments, they have gained taxpayer dollars and have channeled it away from Canadians to a Chinese state-funded shipyard. The Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities several years ago also determined that this infrastructure bank was not fixable. And so they made only one recommendation in their report, and that was to abolish the bank. Once again, we see why Canadians, and conservatives and opposition members were correct in the assessment to abolish the bank. This is yet another example of why conservatives do not have any confidence in this bank. The bank's decisions are suspect and were made behind closed doors, the ramifications of which is such that the decisions came at a pivotal time to Canada and struck a very hard blow to the Canadian employment sector and Canadian workers. The CEO and the Minister of Infrastructure must answer for this. Liberal ministers have often denied having responsibility for the bank's investment or spending, saying it is arm's length. But that is no excuse when the stakes are so high. Canadians need answers to how their hard-earned tax dollars are being spent. The CIB characterized this investment as supporting essential, quote-unquote, service upgrades and, quote, green infrastructure. But it does not reflect the original promise of public-private partnership, a model that was
Mr. Chair,
supposed
point of
to...
order. The member doesn't seem to be speaking to the amendment that's been tabled. We're jumping ahead and seemingly speaking to the substance of the agreement that's been struck in British Columbia. Could we perhaps focus on the amendment as tabled?
Thank you, Mr. Greaves. I'll just ask the member to make link or reference to the amendment that was proposed by Mr. Barcelou-Duval in the remainder of her remarks.
The amendment is to have additional time for the hour, and I'm substantiating why Mr. Barcelou-Duval's amendment is in line and why we will need that extra time. So this is what I'm speaking to. Thank you. The CIB characterized the investment as supporting essential service upgrades, but it does not reflect the original promise of public-private partnership model where private investors share financial risks. This is a taxpayer subsidized loan to another nation. Neither do we have any evidence to suggest that the building these ferries in China, which largely fuels its economy with coal, will provide any net benefit to the environment. In fact, the additional hour which Mr. Barcelou-Duval spoke of is important because the investment will likely cancel out any emissions reductions they hope to achieve because of how poor the environmental standards are in China. Lastly, the CIB just celebrated their 100th investment to build a strong, more resilient Canada. This celebration came out the same week that they announced this $1 billion deal with BC Ferries to purchase new Chinese Communist state-made vessels. The question remains, what other investments are being touted as Canadian investments when they are actually being outsourced to foreign nations and not benefiting the Canadian economy and the Canadian job market? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
WTF. Here, here.